Hey, everybody, welcome back. We're looking into something that I know a lot of people have questions about,
Yeah.
and that is if you file for bankruptcy,
Right.
will your employer find out?
Yeah.
It kind of seems like one of those things that,
Oh, yeah.
it feels like a secret you wouldn't want to get out.
Right.
But the answer might not be as scary as you think.
Exactly.
We're getting insights on this from the experts over at Jersey Law, and they've helped tons of people go through this process.
Yeah.
And as always, I just want to give everybody a quick reminder that this isn't legal advice.
Right.
This is just a really interesting look at what the pros have to say.
Exactly.
And we've got some surprising facts, too.
Yeah.
Did you know that your employer may actually help with bankruptcy costs sometimes?
Yeah. In fact, that's becoming more and more common.
Wow. Okay, well, let's get into it with our expert.
Okay, so that fear of your boss finding out is definitely a common one. I hear that a lot.
Oh, yeah.
But honestly, in most cases, your employer won't be notified about your bankruptcy.
Okay, that's already making me feel a bit better.
Right.
But I'm sure there's some details that we need to unpack here, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So when we talk about bankruptcy,
Yeah.
we usually need to specify whether it's Chapter 7 or Chapter 13.
Right.
With Chapter 7, which is the most common type.
Yeah.
Think of it like hitting the reset button.
Okay.
You're essentially liquidating assets to pay off debts,
Okay.
and the process is very confidential.
Got it.
Your employer generally won't be involved unless it directly affects your work.
So even if, like, I'm drowning in debt, as long as I'm, showing up, doing my job,
Yeah.
my boss wouldn't necessarily know.
That's exactly the point of Chapter 7, is to give you that fresh start without unnecessary complications or, anything like that.
Gotcha.
To give you an idea of how confidential this is, Geraci Law had a client, Tanya Wilson, who actually worked at a bank while going through Chapter 7. She even had a credit card with that same bank.
Okay.
And she was terrified that her supervisor would find out.
Yeah, of course.
But guess what? Her employer never knew.
Oh, wow.
Bankruptcy filings are confidential, even in situations like that.
So if Tanya can file for Chapter 7 while working at the very bank she owed money to,
Right.
and they didn't find out,
Exactly.
it seems like, most employers would be in the dark, too.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay.
The only exception is if there's a wage garnishment order.
Okay.
That's when a creditor gets permission to take a portion of your paycheck directly.
Gotcha.
In that case, your employer would have to be involved to comply with the court order.
Right.
But even then, they wouldn't see the full scope of your financial situation.
Okay.
Just that specific garnishment.
Makes sense. So Chapter 7 is generally pretty private.
Right.
Now, you mentioned that Chapter 13 is different.
Yes.
How so?
Chapter 13 focuses on creating a repayment plan over time. Because of this structure, your employer does get involved, but only to deduct your Chapter 13 payments from your paycheck and send them to the trustee, who oversees the process.
All right.
It's like setting up an automatic bill pay, but your employer handles that specific transaction.
That is a key difference for sure.
Right.
So even though there's employer involvement with Chapter 13,
Right.
it's still very specific and task-oriented. They're not necessarily like digging into the details of my debt.
Right. It's not like they're getting like a full financial breakdown or anything like that.
Okay.
And it's important to note that you can opt for direct payments to the trustee if you want to maintain complete privacy from your employer.
Okay.
Even in a Chapter 13 situation.
So even with Chapter 13, there's still a level of control and choice for the individual.
Exactly.
That's reassuring to hear.
It is. And you know what's really interesting is that this whole idea of bankruptcy as this like shameful secret, it's really starting to fade. Many people now see it as a responsible step. It shows you're taking control of a tough situation and working towards a solution.
That's a really refreshing perspective.
Yeah.
It's not about hiding. It's about taking action.
Exactly.
But what about the legal side of things?
Okay.
Are there any protections in place for employees who file?
Absolutely. Federal law specifically protects employees from being fired or discriminated against just because they filed for bankruptcy.
That's a huge relief.
Yeah.
For anyone worried about, their job security while dealing with financial stress.
Yeah. You have the right to seek financial help without jeopardizing your livelihood. And I think this legal protection reflects a bigger shift we're seeing, more understanding and support for people facing these challenges.
That's encouraging. It seems like we're moving towards a more open and compassionate environment.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about like the legal stuff. It's about a change in attitude, too.
You hit the nail on the head. At Geraci Law, we've had clients bump into colleagues at our offices, both seeking help with bankruptcy.
Wow.
It happens more often than you might think.
Really?
Yeah, and it just highlights how common financial stress is.
Wow, that's wild.
Yeah.
It's almost like a shared experience. You realize you're not alone in this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And because of that, I always encourage open communication.
Oh.
If you're nervous about your employer's reaction, it's perfectly fine to talk to HR and understand their policies.
Okay.
But remember, you also have the right to privacy.
Right.
Keeping your bankruptcy confidential is entirely your choice.
That's so important to know.
Mm-hmm.
You have options and you have rights.
Yes.
So to sum up what we've learned so far, confidentiality is high, especially with Chapter 7.
Right.
The stigma around bankruptcy is lessening.
Yeah, it's changing.
And there are legal protections for employees.
Exactly.
Wow.
And remember, bankruptcy doesn't have to define you. It can be a chance to hit that reset button and rebuild your financial future.
I love that it's not the ending.
Right.
It's a new beginning.
Precisely. And as this shift in perspective continues, I think we'll see bankruptcy discussed more openly.
Okay.
Maybe even integrated into financial wellness programs.
Oh, wow.
Who knows?
That'd be fantastic. Destigmatizing the conversation and providing genuine support.
Right.
Sign me up.
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility things are changing, and that's exciting.
This has been so eye-opening. We've learned a lot about how employer notification works in bankruptcy cases.
Yeah.
And how attitudes are shifting.
It's been great discussing this with you.
Before we wrap up this part of our conversation, I want to remind everyone that we've covered a lot, but this isn't legal advice.
Right.
If you have specific questions or concerns, reach out to qualified professionals who can give you advice tailored to your situation.
Good point. It's always best to get personalized guidance.
And remember, you are not alone in this.
You got it.
Take care, everyone.
Bye. Your comment about financial wellness programs sparked a thought.
Okay.
We've been talking about the shift in how people view bankruptcy and financial struggles.
Right.
And it ties into something else that might surprise you.
Oh, what's that?
This whole conversation has been full of surprises already.
Oh, I know, right?
Well, you might be surprised to learn that many companies nowadays have employee assistance programs, and some of them actually cover financial difficulties, even bankruptcy costs.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah.
My employer might actually help me with bankruptcy.
Yeah.
That seems counterintuitive.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It seems like a big step.
Okay.
But it's becoming more common than you think.
Oh, we.
Employers are starting to understand that financial stress impacts everyone.
Okay.
It affects employees' well-being, their focus, their productivity.
Right.
So more companies are stepping up to provide support.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's like they're acknowledging that life happens and sometimes you need a helping hand.
Exactly. It's a sign that the stigma around financial struggles is decreasing.
Okay.
And employers are recognizing the importance of supporting their employees through tough times.
Yeah.
And it's not just about the financial aid.
Okay.
It's about giving people access to resources and guidance so they can make informed decisions. Some companies even partner with firms like Geraci Law to offer free consultations and legal advice.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
It sounds like these programs are really comprehensive in their approach.
They can be. Of course, every company is different.
Right.
And the level of support will vary.
Yeah.
But the trend is definitely moving towards more open and proactive assistance for employees facing financial challenges.
That's such a positive shift. It feels like we're finally breaking down the walls of shame around financial struggles.
Right.
And creating a more supportive environment.
Exactly.
And it makes sense.
Yeah.
If people feel supported, they're probably going to be more engaged and productive at work, too.
I agree. Openness and communication are so important when it comes to these issues.
Yeah.
The more we talk about them,
Right.
the less isolating and overwhelming they become.
It's like that saying, shared pain is lessened, shared joy is increased.
Right.
Talking about our experiences, both good and bad, helps us realize we're not alone in this.
Exactly. And that's what makes these conversations so crucial. We need to normalize these topics.
Right.
And create a culture of support rather than judgment.
Speaking of conversations, you mentioned earlier that some people at Geraci Law had run into their colleagues while seeking help with bankruptcy.
Right.
It's funny how life works sometimes.
Right. It's a perfect example of how common these situations are.
Yeah.
People from all walks of life face financial challenges.
Right.
It's just that we don't always talk about it openly, so it's easy to feel alone.
That's so true.
Yeah.
We often keep our money struggles private.
Right.
Which makes them feel even scarier and more overwhelming.
Yeah. Absolutely. But imagine if we could shift that mindset.
Okay.
If we could normalize these conversations.
Yeah.
And build a culture where seeking help is seen as a sign of strength, not weakness.
That would be incredible.
Yeah.
It would be a total game changer in terms of how we approach financial well-being as a society.
It really would.
Yeah.
And I think we're slowly moving in that direction step by step.
I hope so.
Yeah.
It would mean a brighter future for so many people.
Now, before we wrap up, is there anything else about employer notification in bankruptcy that you'd like to touch on?
I think we've covered most of the key points.
Okay.
But maybe it's worth reiterating the legal protections we talked about earlier.
Good point.
Yeah.
As we mentioned, federal law prohibits employers from discriminating against someone simply because they filed for bankruptcy.
Right. So you can't be fired or demoted just because you're dealing with financial difficulties.
Exactly.
That's a huge relief for people.
And that applies whether your employer knows about your bankruptcy or not.
Okay.
The law is there to protect you.
That's a powerful safeguard.
It is.
It allows people to seek the financial relief they need without the fear of losing their jobs.
Absolutely. It's a critical part of the bankruptcy process.
Okay.
And it's something everyone should be aware of.
I agree. It's about protecting people's livelihoods and giving them a fair chance to get back on their feet.
Well said. You know, this has been such an informative conversation.
Yeah, me too.
I feel like I've learned so much about the ins and outs of employer notification in bankruptcy cases.
And it's been encouraging to see how attitudes and support systems are evolving.
It's been my pleasure sharing this information with you.
Before we move on, I want to remind everyone about the importance of seeking professional legal advice.
Right.
If you have specific questions or concerns about your own situation, this conversation is for informational purposes only.
Right.
And doesn't constitute legal advice.
Right. It's always best to get personalized guidance from a qualified professional who understands the specifics of your situation.
And remember, you're not alone on this journey.
You got it.
There are resources and support systems available to help you navigate these challenges.
There are people who care and want to see you succeed.
Well, this has been a fascinating look at a topic that impacts so many people.
Yeah.
We've talked about the confidentiality of Chapter 7 bankruptcy.
Right.
How employers are specifically involved in Chapter 13 cases. The changing perspectives around bankruptcy.
Right.
And those incredible employee assistance programs that are popping up to help people through financial difficulties.
Yeah, those are great.
Plus, of course, we touched on the legal protections that are in place to safeguard employees' rights.
It's been a pleasure discussing this with you.
Before we go, I want to leave our listeners with a thought-provoking question based on what we've explored today.
Ooh, I love a good thought-provoking question. What is it?
Well, we've talked about how societal views on bankruptcy are changing.
Right.
Becoming more widely accepted as a responsible way to handle financial challenges. So could it become a more openly discussed part of financial wellness programs in the future? Could we see a future where bankruptcy isn't just a reactive solution, but a proactively discussed option for managing financial health?
That's a fantastic question. It really gets to the heart of how we view and approach financial well-being as a society.
It's definitely something to ponder as we move forward.
It is. Lots of food for thought.
Well, on that note, we'll wrap up this part of our conversation.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us for this exploration of employer notification in bankruptcy cases.
It's been great being here.
And remember, knowledge is power.
You got it.
The more we understand these topics, the better equipped we are to make informed decisions and navigate life's challenges.
Knowledge and empowerment go hand in hand.
Take care, everyone, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye. Yeah, it really is exciting to think about, you know, all the possibilities for the future. If we can create a space where these conversations about finances are just normalized, you know, it could really change how we view financial well-being as a society.
Absolutely. Just imagine a workplace where asking for help with your finances is seen as responsible and strong instead of something to be ashamed of.
Exactly. A place where resources and support are readily available to guide people through those tough financial times. It'd be a game changer for so many individuals and families.
I am totally on board with that kind of future. Creating a culture of empathy and understanding around financial matters is so important.
You know, it's remarkable how far we've come in destigmatizing other aspects of our lives. You know, we're so much more open about mental health these days. People seek therapy without judgment and prioritize self-care. Why should finances be any different?
That's a great point.
Yeah.
It's all interconnected, isn't it? Our financial well-being directly impact our mental and emotional health.
Exactly.
And vice versa.
Precisely. By addressing financial challenges head-on
Yeah.
and providing the right support, we're actually contributing to a more holistic sense of well-being for everyone.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
It's about creating a society where people feel empowered to take control of their finances, seek help when they need it, and build a brighter future for themselves and their loved ones.
Well said. I think that's a perfect note to end on.
Yes, I think so too.
Yeah.
This has been such an insightful and encouraging conversation.
It really has.
It's amazing to learn that employer notification in bankruptcy cases isn't as common as many people fear,
Right.
especially with Chapter 7.
Exactly.
And it's been really heartening to hear how attitudes towards bankruptcy are shifting, with more and more people seeing it as a responsible way to address financial challenges.
Absolutely. And we can't forget about the importance of those legal protections
Right.
for employees who file for bankruptcy.
Yeah.
They have rights. And it's so important that they know and understand those rights.
I agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
This conversation has given us a lot to think about.
It has.
And I hope it's empowered our listeners to approach these topics with more knowledge and confidence.
I hope so too.
Yeah.
It's all about empowering people to take control of their financial lives.
Before we say goodbye, I want to remind everyone that if they're facing financial difficulties or considering bankruptcy,
Yeah.
there are resources out there to help.
Absolutely.
Please don't hesitate to reach out to qualified professionals like the amazing folks at Geraci,
Yes.
who can provide personalized guidance and support.
Right.
Remember, you're not alone in this journey.
Excellent point. There are people who care and want to help you find the best path forward.
That's right. And with that, we'll wrap up this episode of the show.
Okay. Sounds good.
Thanks for joining us for this fascinating exploration of employer notification in bankruptcy cases.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Take care, everyone, and remember, knowledge is power.
You got it.
Empower yourselves, seek help when you need it, and keep striving for a brighter financial future.
Absolutely.
We'll see you next time.